When you're going in a helicopter 3 to 4 times a week and killing an average of 20 to 30 pigs every time you go, and the crop still gets completely destroyed, that's a problem.
Feral hogs have devastated Texas farmlands and ecosystems for decades, breeding at relentless rates and outsmarting every human effort to control them.
This is a serious deal. This is probably the worst hog damage as far as crops go.
We said that you either have pigs or you will have pigs. You're either going to be directly affected or indirectly affected.
What if the solution wasn't found in traps, helicopters, or bounties, but lurking silently in the shadows, hunting the problem at its source? A startling infrared video captured something unexpected. Coyotes working together with surgical precision to take down hog piglets, exposing a hidden natural predator that has quietly reshaped hog populations for years. This discovery turns everything known about feral hog management on its head, revealing a predator-prey story that no one saw coming. The hog invasions rise. The feral hog problem in Texas is anything but new. It's a crisis centuries in the making. It began in the 1500s when Spanish explorers introduced domestic pigs along the Gulf Coast as a portable food source. These pigs weren't meant to become permanent residents, but over generations, they escaped and adapted to wild conditions, spreading relentlessly across the southern United States. What started as a survival strategy for explorers turned into an ecological nightmare, with no natural predators or controls to keep their populations in check. By the early 1900s, the problem was compounded when European sportsmen imported Eurasian wild boar for hunting purposes. These animals were leaner, faster, and more aggressive than the domestic pigs, and when they escaped captivity, they interbred with feral hogs already in the wild. The resulting hybrids combined intelligence, durability, and adaptability, becoming nearly unstoppable in their growth and impact. These feral hogs bred rapidly, with sows capable of producing up to 24 piglets annually under the right conditions. Their numbers exploded. Today, the United States is estimated to harbor nearly 7 million feral hogs, with Texas alone carrying about 2.5 million, spread across almost every county except one. These animals are more than just a pest. They are a full-scale ecological invasion. Their speed, reaching up to 30 miles per hour, and physical toughness, from razor-sharp tusks to skin shielded by thick cartilage, make them formidable adversaries for any control efforts. The damage feral hogs bring about is honestly immense. They root up crops, collapse fences, wreck sensitive waterways, and also end up competing with native wildlife like it's nothing. The economic losses to Texas farmers and ranchers are over $500 million each year, and that adds up to a national toll estimated at around $3 billion annually. And it's not only property issues either, but feral hogs also act as disease vectors, plus they are predators. They've basically tweaked the balance of whole ecosystems. The reach of this problem runs from urban zones to remote farmland, so it's not really confined to some wild or rural spot anymore. Their presence feels pervasive, and it brings trouble for aviation, infrastructure, and human safety at the same time. There was also a tragic case in Harris County, where a resident lost her life during a feral hog attack. That incident sticks in your mind because the threat is very personal too. Still, even with all the evidence piling up, the response to this crisis historically kept falling into the same predictable kind of patterns that don't do much. Agencies and landowners leaned hard on removing adult hogs while not really facing the broader implications of rapid reproduction and the way populations rebound. Across huge landscapes, the numbers just kept swelling, which really underscored that traditional methods were missing the real target. This crisis was being noticed, but the underlying causes and remedies were often misunderstood. It felt like a force of nature, frustrating, relentless, and beyond any kind of control. Yet underneath that surface, a different understanding was quietly forming, and it was going to shift the entire approach to this invasion, not just tweak it a little. What appeared at first as another hog removal tactic would soon expose an overlooked player in this ecological drama: failed control strategies. For decades, the default strategy against feral hogs ranged from cage traps and ground hunts to costly helicopter operations covering hundreds of thousands of acres. Hunters and removal teams poured resources into capturing or slaying as many adults as possible. Yet, the population showed no meaningful decline. Entire herds removed from one property were replaced within months by migrating groups from adjacent areas, rapidly recolonizing the landscapes. This revolving door of hog removal was demoralizing for landowners and wildlife managers alike. On ranches like Norman's in central Texas, even the most aggressive trapping efforts provided only temporary relief. Hogs would return quickly, often smarter and more cautious after encountering traps or dogs. The survivors learned to avoid removal techniques and taught their offspring the same evasive behaviors, making every new attempt more challenging. Helicopter drives brought scale but failed in impact. These flights could cover 400,000 acres in days and remove hundreds of hogs in a single session. Yet, the hog population's growth rate outpaced every trigger pulled. The biggest challenge wasn't slaying adults, but managing the explosive reproductive potential of the animals left behind, or the piglets still being born unseen. What made this fight impossible was this kind of mathematical certainty. If you leave it alone, feral hog populations double in less than 5 months. Their reproductive rate gave them this relentless edge that no trap, no bullet, no clean escape route could permanently beat. Each time you managed a successful removal, you basically created this vacuum, and then new groups rushed in from nearby wilderness or from those escape corridors no one really talks about. But then there was a side effect, kind of unintended yet still profound. The pressure didn't just reduce numbers, it scattered them, pushing cautious animals into counties that were previously unoccupied and into fresh habitats. Aggressive hunting started spreading the problem instead of containing it, which sounds obvious after the fact, but still it kept happening. Every helicopter drive aimed at one ranch somehow seeded trouble in the next one over. Managing feral hogs ended up like playing whack-a-mole across the Texas landscape. Only the mole keeps learning. And the whole thing wasn't just frustrating, it was genuinely expensive. Over 10 years, the USDA's Wildlife Services spent more than $100 million trying to suppress feral hogs nationwide, and Texas took the lion's share of the damage. Even so, the numbers kept climbing, and the hogs kept winning. With all the spending, plus dozens of studies printed on control efforts, there wasn't a breakthrough strong enough to flip the outcome. What stayed missing was a fundamental rethink of where the pressure should be placed and how it should be applied. Sticking to adults only, it basically ignored the breeding cycle's weak windows and the next generation's role in keeping the whole population alive and moving. Conventional wisdom didn't really account for those hidden natural forces quietly steering results in the background. Out of this frustration and mounting failure, researchers began to pay closer attention, not just to the hogs, but to the predators lurking at the edges of this conflict. The predator overlooked. Around 2014, field researchers in the Texas Hill Country noticed a curious pattern. Feral hog nests, the carefully built brush beds where sows sheltered newborn piglets, were often found completely excavated and emptied without signs of traditional predation. No blood, no struggle, just hollowed-out nests where litters had been days earlier. This mystery baffled biologists and wildlife officers. The breakthrough came through the work of Dr. Michael Bodenchuk and others who examined tracks at nest sites and reviewed infrared trail camera footage. They identified a surprising culprit: coyotes. These seemingly opportunistic scavengers were moving through the brush at night in coordinated groups, exhibiting behaviors that did not fit any known scavenging model. Instead, These coyotes were deliberately and systematically hunting feral hog piglets. What startled researchers most was the coyotes' level of coordination. The footage revealed formations with lead coyotes approaching nests stealthily from downwind, while flankers fanned out to block escape routes. When sows left their nests to forage briefly, the coyotes struck swiftly and precisely, delivering fatal bites to the piglets in under 5 seconds. This method was a highly adapted, tactical predation strategy, unlike anything documented before. Lab analyses confirmed the extent of this predation. Necropsies of captured coyotes from Fort Hood found fresh feral hog piglet tissue in nearly 1/3 of stomach samples. Further studies across states like Georgia found piglet DNA in over 30% of coyote scat. This wasn't a rare scavenger event. It was a sustained, systematic predation impacting hog populations over wide regions. Prior to this discovery, wildlife programs focused almost exclusively on adult hog mortality, regarding adults as the only meaningful target. Coyotes hunting piglets had gone largely unnoticed, discounted because of the weight disparity and presumed risks involved. The prevailing belief was that a 30-pound predator could not challenge 200-pound feral hog sows, but the evidence showed coyotes had adapted behaviors that made this possible and effective. This revelation shifted the understanding of feral hog population control dramatically. Coyotes were not just incidental predators, but key biological agents exerting pressure precisely where it mattered most: the future generations. It was a natural solution embedded in the landscape, camouflaged by decades of narrow focus and misunderstanding. Recognizing the role of coyotes in this ongoing correction revealed why traditional hunts failed and suggested new paths forward, ones that would ultimately rethink feral hog management from the ground up. While hunters and agencies exhausted resources targeting adults, nature had been quietly redirecting the balance, hidden in plain sight, carried out by a predator few considered capable of such precision. Coyote hunting tactics. The coyotes' approach to hunting feral hog piglets is nothing short of a carefully rehearsed operation, showcasing a level of strategic coordination rarely seen outside of pack hunters like wolves. Trail camera footage reveals coyotes moving in formation under the cover of night, with one animal leading a stealthy approach downwind of the hog nest to avoid alerting the sow. Flankers spread wide on either side, prepared to cut off any escape routes once the sow leaves. This isn't random scavenging or opportunism. It's a calculated attack that plays on the sow's instincts and physical limitations. When the mother hog forages away from the nest, even briefly, the coyotes spring into action. One holds the perimeter, sealing off exits, while another tests the piglets to provoke panic. At a precisely timed moment, the group rushes forward, each biting a piglet quickly in the back of the neck to immobilize it effortlessly. Remarkably, the entire attack and retreat happen within 5 seconds. So fast, the sow often fails to react until it's already over. This rapid surgical strike minimizes risk while maximizing success. Coyotes understand their physical disadvantages compared to a 200-pound feral sow. They avoid direct confrontations with adults, knowing a single unlucky encounter could be fatal. Instead, these predators create chaos and confusion by provoking panic and dividing the sow's attention. The sow's instinct to protect is exploited as the coyotes maneuver like seasoned tacticians, outflanking and ambushing their prey with precision and teamwork. This tactical hunting was nearly unrecorded until modern trail cameras caught the rare glimpses of it unfolding. Previously, coyotes were generally dismissed as scavengers unable to pose real threats to healthy adult hogs. But now, their nocturnal movements, coordinated strikes, and relentless targeting of piglets reveal a sophisticated predator adapting its behavior to a lucrative, abundant food source. The hunting window also shows this surprising adaptation thing, kind of in plain sight. Coyotes have moved their peak activity to early dawn, when sows are, physically and mentally, kind of worn out from nighttime foraging and rooting. That fatigue period makes the hogs slower to react, so nest defense gets weaker, and the piglets end up more exposed. And yeah, this learned behavioral tweak seems to pass along across generations of coyotes, showing this honestly remarkable ecological savvy, or whatever you want to call it. Ecologists pretty much link part of this adjustment to human influence on ecosystems. When coyotes lost more of their usual prey, like rabbits and rodents, they had to diversify their diet and fine-tune new hunting methods. With so few options left, they started leaning hard on feral hog piglets, extra food in huge numbers, and often not well guarded by the mother during those vulnerable moments. That newer hunt style ends up targeting the weakest part of the hog population cycle, like the bottleneck, sort of. Before 2014, records of this kind of tightly coordinated coyote hunting were almost non-existent, at least in documents. But lately, there's evidence coming out of Texas, Georgia, and other places, showing groups of 3 or 4 coyotes working together with roles, like one distracts, another slides around to the left, while a third cuts off escape. This pack-style coordination, even if it is not literally wolves, feels wolf-level, and it comes from an animal that was long dismissed as a trash scavenger, so it changes how we think about coyote behavior in today's ecosystems. Overall, this shift in predation strategy basically points to a predator that adjusts more quickly than the prey. It leans on intelligence and cooperation to exploit a vulnerability that humans overlooked for decades. The quiet war coyotes wage would soon reveal itself in population shifts, challenging decades of assumptions about ecosystem control. Impact on hog populations. Coyote predation is doing more than removing a few feral hog piglets. It may be reshaping entire hog populations. In several regions, researchers have observed that areas with healthy coyote numbers often experience lower piglet survival and slower growth among feral hog herds. Coyotes target one of the most vulnerable stages in the hog life cycle, newborn and young piglets. While traps, hunters, and helicopter operations usually focus on adult hogs, coyotes attack the next generation before it can mature and reproduce. This creates constant pressure on breeding populations and reduces the number of hogs entering adulthood. Unlike human control programs, coyotes operate continuously. They hunt throughout the year, across difficult terrain, and in changing weather conditions. Their ability to track hog families and locate hidden piglets allows them to reach places that traps and hunting teams may miss. Field observations in East Texas suggest that coyote attacks can remove a significant portion of piglets during breeding seasons. These losses may slow herd expansion, interrupt reproductive cycles, and provide a natural population check against an invasive species known for multiplying rapidly. The findings have encouraged researchers to reconsider the coyote's role in feral hog management. For decades, coyotes were often treated as pests and targeted through bounty programs, trapping, and widespread culling. However, reducing their numbers may carry unintended consequences. In areas where coyote populations decline, young hogs can face less natural predation, allowing more piglets to survive and eventually reproduce. This creates a troubling irony. Removing coyotes to protect livestock could also weaken one of the natural forces helping control feral hogs. Wildlife managers are now exploring strategies that combine traditional removal methods with the protection of healthy predator populations. Coyotes may not eliminate the feral hog crisis alone, but their constant pressure on piglets could become an important part of a broader, more sustainable solution. With this new evidence in hand, the question now becomes how to use the coyote's unique capabilities to craft smarter, more effective strategies that work with nature instead of against it. Rethinking management. Wildlife experts are rethinking how to fight feral hogs after discovering that coyotes naturally suppress their populations by relentlessly hunting piglets. Instead of treating coyotes as pests, many managers now see them as valuable allies that provide around-the-clock control where traps and hunters often fall short. This marks a major shift from focusing only on removing adult hogs to working with nature itself. New strategies kind of mix healthy coyote populations with smarter tech, and then it just works better. Sort of. Infrared smart traps, solar-powered monitoring systems, and coordinated trapping across nearby ranches help a lot because it becomes easier to capture whole sounders. At the same time, it also reduces the chances that feral hogs get educated or wise up and start avoiding the traps in a more effective, steadier way. Helicopter culls are now being used too, but they're paired with continuous natural predation, so the whole thing turns into a longer-term plan that doesn't stall out. The results have been pretty impressive, though. In parts of Texas, some counties report that crop damage has dropped dramatically. Meanwhile, places that keep coyote numbers fairly stable tend to report fewer feral hogs year after year. This success has even pulled attention from wildlife agencies in places like Australia and New Zealand, where they're dealing with invasive pig problems that look pretty similar. Challenges remain. Years of predator control programs, plus coyote bounty hunts, have lowered predator numbers in plenty of regions. That reduction can unintentionally give hog populations more room to grow fast. Adjusting public attitudes and wildlife policy changes will probably take time. Researchers argue, however, that bringing back natural predator-prey relationships is more sustainable than depending only on expensive, constant human intervention. So the lesson is starting to feel pretty clear. Effective feral hog control isn't about overpowering nature, it's about cooperating with it, even if that sounds softer than it really is. When wildlife managers support the ecosystems that evolved to restrain invasive species, they end up with solutions that are more efficient, less costly, and longer-lasting. Texas's feral hog crisis reveals that the most effective control may come not from traps or helicopters, but from nature's own hunters, coyotes. Their coordinated and relentless predation on piglets could be a game-changer, showing that working with ecosystems may be smarter than fighting against them. If this surprising discovery changed how you see the wild, please like and subscribe for more unexpected stories. Thanks for watching, and follow the trail by clicking the next video waiting for you on the screen.